Anyways, well, thank you for taking the time to talk to me today. Right? Like, I mean, as I told you, I'm coaching all these young kids tennis, and I'm actually going to go after this interview, like, going to go meet them and play tennis again. Um, a lot of these kids have
Oh,
big
nice.
dreams. Like, one of them is just 11, and he's not even 11. He's already thinking about going pro, and he wants to go pro and emulate Federer, Djokovic, and those big guys. And even my son, if you ask him, he's like,
Yeah.
"Yeah, I'm going tennis pro right now." And for me, like, even let's forget about pro, right? Like, even if you play Division One, you're a seriously accomplished athlete,
Yeah.
right?
And it's like a lot of money that you can save.
Yeah, exactly, right? Like, so a lot of money you can save for college. So I was curious. Like, I know you're one of a close friend of mine, like, that's played Division One uh,
Hmm.
tennis, and very accomplished athlete. I was curious, what we've never had this conversation, but what led you to tennis? Tell me about your tennis journey.
My tennis journey, well, it was pretty, um, I don't know, obvious. My dad is a tennis coach. My dad is Mexican, um, and he when he moved to Switzerland with my mom, um, he didn't speak German, so the only thing he could do was teach tennis. But tennis is his passion, anyways. That's literally all he thinks about. So him having three kids, he wanted us to learn how to play tennis, and I think I was the one out of all us three that first of all liked playing tennis, but I also really enjoyed spending time with my dad. And if it meant playing tennis, I could spend time more with my dad, then I would do that. So yeah, so I liked playing tennis when I was younger, and then yeah, I really liked all the qualities he taught me through tennis, like hard work and like weather is not an excuse. Like it doesn't matter if it rains, snows, or if there's thunderstorms. I had to like literally take my bike and ride to practice in whatever kind of weather. Like all these things I really enjoyed. But yeah, I started playing tennis because my dad was a tennis coach.
When did you start? What age?
Well, I started playing tennis probably when I was like 6 or 7 years old, but I started playing tennis every day, probably starting at age 8.
Hmm.
At age 8, I started playing every single day.
Wow.
Yeah.
Is that your primary sport, or did you play other sports as well?
Well, when I was like young, like 8 or 9 or 10 years old, my parents did want me to do other sports as well. So I played like hockey for a while. I was
Field hockey or ice hockey?
field hockey.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and then I was doing gymnastics too for a year in like fifth grade or something like that, or sixth grade, whatever. And then I was dancing for a little bit, but my parents made it always very clear that tennis comes first,
Hmm.
and that that's really what I'm focusing on. And only if I have a little extra time, I can explore some other things.
Nice.
Yeah. So it was like, yeah, my dad was like pretty strict on me playing every single day and making sure that I would go to practice. Um, and yeah, it was good and tough at the same time because like school in Switzerland was hard for me, and then I played tennis. Um, Definitely like an hour a day, probably 2 hours a day on top of school, which made it even harder for me in school.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah,
Were there days like, oh my God, my old man I would hope he would slow down and like not take me to tennis and just let me be?
there's nothing like he would never take me to tennis. Like I would literally have to ride my bike every single day to practice, and my tennis center was only like a 15-20 minute bike ride from where I live. But imagine in the winters in Switzerland, like it's snowing or it's like raining, it's like 0 degrees, like you're freezing already standing outside, and then you have to ride your bike to practice. It's like pretty tough. Like I remember so many days where it was shitty weather, and I would just like look at my clock, and I knew I had until like let's say 4:43, like 4:43 p.m. was literally the last minute I could leave to make it there on time to practice. Like because I was like praying for the weather to get better, you know, or things like that. And so when it hit like 4:43, I just knew whatever the weather was, I had to like run to my bike and like bike as fast as I could. And like many times I would show up at my tennis center like soaked, or my hands were frozen, or sometimes, you know, in the winter I had like snow on my hair, because like, you know, when it gets really cold, like the snow like gets stuck onto your hair. It was really tough. But that's like what my dad like taught me. Like it doesn't matter like what it looks like outside, like you'll be coming to practice and I'll be waiting there for you, you know. Yeah.
When did you find out like you were really, really good at it? When did you start playing competitive tennis?
Well, I started playing competitive tennis pretty soon, probably like when I was like 9-10 years old. But you know, was a very small person. Like I'm still very small, but and like my level was good enough to like play in the get recruited by the national team of Switzerland. But when I went to like the recruiting day, they didn't pick me because they said I have no chance because of my height, not because of my skills, because of my height. And so, yeah, I started playing competitive after like once I was like 10 years old, and I played like almost every weekend a tournament. But it was, but I was basically always alone with my dad, because the national association didn't really believe that I could be a good tennis player, which is wrong. If you have somebody that is small or tiny or whatever, you know, they can definitely
be good, really
at
good
that level. Yeah.
Now, so it's a big. I mean, obviously, playing as a kid. At what point did you realize, hey, this could be my ticket, you know, for college?
Yeah.
How did all that come about?
Well, so I remember in like, I think it was like 6th or 7th grade, I had a tennis teacher. Sometimes my dad would organize different tennis coaches for me, just so that people would teach me other things. So I had a tennis coach, and he was actually playing college tennis in the US at University of Las Vegas. Every time we sat on the bench, I would ask him about his college experience, because it was so fascinating to me that he was like on a different continent, in a different country, like getting, you know, like in a college playing tennis there. And it just sounded so exotic for me, you know? And I've always loved traveling. And so I was like, ever since then, I knew that was my dream. And I always told my dad that I didn't want to go professional, that I wanted to just play college tennis in the US. And that, yeah. So I always, from a very young age, I knew. Yeah.
Right. And it's quite a move, right? Coming from Switzerland, which I would consider a fairly liberal country, to Kentucky, is it? Like, how did you choose Kentucky?
That was not in my plans. Yeah. It was like, well, I wanted to play college tennis, and I started applying for, or I started contacting coaches when I was in like, I want to say sophomore year of high school. Um, and I can tell you what, like, what exactly colleges, but basically, you know how I said school is very hard for me, like school and tennis, because when I was like in middle school, I practiced like 2 hours a day, and then I had tournaments on the weekends, so I was gone most of the weekends. So like, and then I had trouble learning for school. And in Switzerland, only like the 20% of the smartest people in middle school can get into high school. And then it's kind of hard to graduate from high school. So it's like a lot of work in Switzerland to even graduate from high school. And with me having tennis and already struggling in school, it's really hard for me to, first of all, get into high school and then graduate from high school. But once I graduated from high school, I barely graduated. And when I transferred my grades to the US system, I showed up as a 1.8 GPA, which is like so low. Like nobody accepts a 1.8 GPA.
Okay.
Yeah, it was like,
You should have told me this before I hired you at Granicus.
yeah, I don't know. It was crazy. But then, so yeah, and so I had already signed on for Northern Arizona University, but then my 1.8 GPA came in, and they couldn't accept me. They're like, your grades are too low, and so I had to take half a year off because I was already too late for like starting in fall. And I had to just sign on to any college that would accept a 1.8 GPA. So I just accepted like this small college in Kentucky. And then I just stayed there for a year and transferred from there.
Where did you go from? Was Campbellsville, right? From
Yeah,
Kentucky?
at first I went to Campbellsville, Kentucky, University in Kentucky. It's just like a very small school. And then I transferred to like Purdue University, Fort Wayne.
Okay.
It was back then. It was called IPFW. They just switched it, but yeah. So and within like my first semester in the US, I didn't speak well English, and I got a 4.0 GPA, and I hardly studied because all of the information that they taught us, I already had in high school. I was like, this is such a joke. Yeah.
Yeah, but what was that recruitment process like? I mean, what do? You take videos of yourself? How do you reach out to coaches and do all that stuff?
Yeah, well, it's different for international students. Like and I can tell you what it is for national students, but for international students, you basically, well, for both kind of students, you need to play as much as you can, as many tournaments as you can, because the most important thing coaches care about is results. What kind of results you have, and will dictate like where they know like what level you have, and that's how they can compare. But for international students, results like show a little bit, and they kind of know what the rankings are internationally. But you need to also take a video of yourself playing tennis, and then and also send, if you have like one or two like match recordings where you played a full match against somebody. And then I had to, because nobody knew that I was looking for school. So I literally like printed out a list of schools and areas I was interested in. And then I just I went to the school's website and to the coaches section. And every coach section has like an email address for the head coach and assistant coach. And I just sent them out one after another. I just sent, I don't know how many emails, lots of emails. And then like some coaches like will respond and are curious. Like I had a discussion with like Berkeley and ASU and NAU, and then also like some Southern California universities, because I was mostly looking on the West Coast. And so I went through an organization and they helped me find that small school.
But I mean, nobody would know about it, right? Like, I mean, who would have thought Campbellsville, Kentucky? Like, even I didn't know until because I knew that.
Yeah. So like, it's also like depending on your like player's level, they can also kind of figure out if they might be a fit for D1, D2, or D3. And so then they can like look at a list of, oh, these are all D3 schools that have a tennis program, you know, and then go either by location or, you know, however they want to contact them. But in the US, if you're like playing in the US and you're playing tournaments in the US, it's a little bit easier because all the results that you have, like you'll have a US ranking, like you'll have a USTA ranking, and then you'll have a ranking on tennisrecruiting.net, I think it's called. So coaches will always go through these rankings and the lists and, you know, start contacting, you know, kids one by one. And then they will also like go to big tournaments, like, you know, like those local or not like state tournaments and stuff like that, and recruit right from the tournaments as well. But like the most important thing for people, for kids in the US, is to just play as many tournaments as they can to get a ranking and get better and get their ranking better. Because then once they have...
Got it. Sorry, I lost you a little bit there. The internet connection was spotty, but looks like you're saying just play a lot, get a national ranking, you know, and that's kind of the best way to get yourself out there for kids that are already there in the US.
Yeah.
Cool.
Exactly.
All right.
Yeah.
How was it being was it worth it, like playing Division 1? How was it as a Division 1 player?
Yeah, it was, you know, once I was a teenager, like honestly, my passion wasn't tennis anymore. I was like, tennis, whatever. But because that was my dream to come to the US, I kind of was like, this is my way to get to the US and have a college experience in the US. So I was like, I'm just going to keep playing tennis. And then once I was in, and part of my loss of passion came because I was already injured quite a bit. So I was playing with pain, you know, like I had shoulder issues and, you know, when I was a teenager. But so then when I became an athlete at the D1 college, I was, I mean, it's a great experience. I would recommend it to anybody. First of all, it's already great because you can go to college for free if you get a full ride, you know, which is awesome. Like you don't have any debt or any worries or anything like that. But also just like the full college like athlete experience is great because you're in a team, which makes it way more fun. You're traveling together to places. You create like, you know, these big bonds and long-term friendships with people. It's like so much fun, and like it's competitive, and you know, it's a really great experience. And the only downfall is the higher division you play, like D3, D2, D1, you're probably gonna play more tennis. Like in college, we trained 2 hours tennis a day and an hour conditioning or like weights, and that every day. And then Friday, Saturday, Sundays, we usually played like other teams. And in my college, sometimes we played like, I've had weekends where I played again, what was it? 4 matches every day, 2 singles, 2 doubles every single day, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So, and then plus my injury didn't get better, obviously. So like at the end of my college experience, sometimes I couldn't hold my racket anymore because I was so injured. But because I was playing number one on the team, they couldn't pull me out, because if I get pulled out, then every single person switches a spot up. And then the chances of us losing as a team just becomes way higher. So
I was seeing some of your scores. I was actually seeing some of your scores. They're still pretty public. I mean, 6-0, 6-0, 6-0, 6-1, a lot of double bagels and
yeah, I had like, well, yeah, I had, it was, I had fun. I wasn't like, I was challenged in some matches, but yeah, it was fine for me.
Yeah, but did you feel the pressure to continue playing because otherwise you would lose your scholarship, or was that the
Oh
pressure on
yeah,
you?
I mean, there's never even a question that I couldn't play, because my parents made it clear that they could not afford a U.S. college. I mean, I can go to university in Switzerland for like $5,000 for like a year or two, you know? So like spending 20-30 thousand a year is just not like something that was in the cards. So for me, I was like, I need that scholarship and I need to keep playing tennis. And I just had to deal with a lot of physiotherapy and ice baths and like, you know, all that stuff to kind of deal with the pain. And I had like cortisone shots as well to just get over it, you know? But yeah, so that I know one of your questions is like why I stopped playing tennis after college. It's I was in so much pain I couldn't hold the racket anymore, and obviously that takes some of the fun out of it. And still now, like I don't know, 6-7 years after college, like I can still feel the pain from what I did, you know, playing college.
Crazy.
Yeah, like I cannot sleep on my right side anymore. It's like that bad.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Would you if kids are on your cards, would you ever teach your kids tennis?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think I just like what happened what happened is that I think I learned a movement wrong, and then at the same time I didn't do as much stretching as I should have done, you know, because my problem started early, like when I was a teenager. And so if I would have like made sure that my form was like correct, like it was my serve that it wasn't correct, then my form was correct serving, and I would have just like make sure that I like stretched every day and stuff like that, then I think that would have been better.
Nice.
Okay. Whoa.
That's
Yeah.
that's kind of like a sad end to this tennis career, I guess.
Well, no, I have a good ending because I stopped playing tennis for like, I don't know, a few years, like 3-4 years, and I had no interest ever picking up the racket.
I have all these kids aspiring, loving tennis right now. They're still very young, got their entire life ahead of them. They may change their mind a year from now, God knows, right? But like they're 10, 11, 12. What advice would you give them?
Yeah, so I would say if like especially if they really like playing tennis, I think they should keep playing tennis is like, and you know, follow that passion and have fun playing tennis, like, you know, like make sure that they're not only like having one-on-one lessons, which can be boring, but like have team lessons. Like for you, for example, for a coach, it's so important to keep the lessons like fun and just not only like drills and stuff like that, so that they keep the passion. But then also for them, I would say that you know, this is a sport that it's a great sport that they can take with them or play their entire life. You know, if they keep on practicing and keep on playing tournaments and are really ambitious, it can get them a scholarship at a college, which is an experience that is, you can't, you know, there's nothing that can replace that. It's so unique and special. Like I would recommend to any kid that has like some sort of desire to do that, to like put their mind to it and practice, and like just, like there will be hard times, but like just get through it, because it's those 4 years are just some of the best years that you'll have, and it's so much fun playing on a team. But then also, like, tennis is just a great sport even after college, and if they don't want to go pro or do college tennis, it's just a great sport to have friends and play together and have fun.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I mean, it's cool, like, to kind of get your perspective on this, and kind of, I'm sure the kids will. I mean, I don't know. Hopefully, they'll sit down for 15 minutes and actually see this. God knows, it may not be all worth it. I don't know if it's going to be worth it. Now, on the lighter side, I remember you telling me, I don't know, 6-7 years ago, that Federer in Switzerland was very accessible and would actually come. You hit with Federer, is that right? Is that true?
Well, yeah. So, Switzerland is small, and the tennis community is small. So I saw him like a couple of times at like events in Switzerland, and like one time I like was able to like play with him for a little bit. And he, every time I saw him, and that was like before he won his first Wimbledon. And I saw him at an event right after he won his first Wimbledon. And so I don't know, I haven't seen him like in person in years, or like being close to him, but back then he was like so nice and humble and just so friendly. Yeah.
How was it hitting with him? You didn't know you were hitting with a future like 20-time Grand Slam champion.
Oh, no, in Switzerland he was already very famous.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so it was like a big deal, but yeah, I mean, now it's crazy to think what he's done, but yeah.
How did the ball come when he hit it? Do you remember?
I was just excited to like play, You should see my photo with him. It's like, I'm like so excited. I'm like smiling like crazy. I should send that to you.
No, that's great. I mean, just to even think that you were on the same court with that guy and hit with him, that's really, really cool. Well, I appreciate you taking the time and talking about this. Like, I really do. I'm just kind of like, as I said, going pro is one thing, right? Like, that's definitely, obviously, a great accomplishment. Playing Division I itself is a huge accomplishment. You're already showing that you're like the top 1% of the athletes in terms of what you've done. Yes, you don't get as well paid as the pros do, but I mean, even the pros, you got to be in the top 50 to make any money.
Yeah.
It's so, I mean, it's such a small fraction that makes any money. So it's kind of cool that you did this, and I'm glad that now I've learned a little bit about this part of your life, which for all the years that I know you, we've never talked about this much, other than the fact that you've always said, I stopped playing tennis. I don't want to go near a court.
Yes, that's true. Yeah, back then it was pretty fresh. So I was like, I don't really want to talk about it. But I guess like the last thing I want to say to your kids that are watching or that will hear this is that, like, college seems so far away, especially if you're like 10 years old. I mean, you're probably getting to college at like 18 or 19, whatever. That's like a long time, and that's like a very long goal. But like for me, I always like said, like, I just gonna play every day, and I'm gonna give my best in every single practice that I have, and I'm gonna try to like play like X amounts of tournaments like this month or next month or whatever, like small little goals that I knew, like, oh, I can do this. I'm going to sign up to this tournament, and then this tournament, and in between, I'm just going to practice every day. And like the time, like suddenly, goes by really fast. And if you just like keep that as a priority, like to practice every day and like to give your best and to play tournaments on a regular basis, like you will improve and you will get to a level where you definitely can play D3 if you play every day, or twice or every other day. And you can probably get to like D2 or maybe even D1 if you just like play on a regular basis, if you just don't give up. But I think it's like, it looks like such a long-term goal, but if you just focus on like whatever you have to do this week or this day, I think the time goes by pretty quickly. And then it's already freshman in high school when you have to start reaching out to colleges, and then it's like it's already almost there. So
that's right. All right, like with that, we'll kind of stop this. Like, be present is what you're saying. Be present,
yes,
focus on the now, and that will, and then let the results will take care of itself.